Hi! Have you ever wondered how to use karyotypes to answer genetic questions? Then you've come to the right place. It's me, Moser. After this video, you should be able to identify diploid and haploid numbers of any species from their karyotype, compare the karyotypes of individuals to locate missing or extra chromosomes, and know what those are called, and distinguish between autosomes and sex chromosomes on a karyotype. Now, you should already know what a karyotype is and what haploid and diploid numbers are. Let's get started. Just in case you were a little fuzzy, remember this? It's a karyotype. You'll sometimes see these called karyograms, but we're going to refer to them as karyotypes. The karyotype is technically all the chromosomes an individual has. The picture is technically a karyogram, but we're going to just keep talking about this as a karyotype. So, every karyotype shows individual chromosomes, that would be those things that look like little colored sausages, and it shows homologous pairs. Remember, those are the ones where you got one from yo mama and one from yo papa, and those pairs are numbered. They're not only numbered, they're numbered in descending size order. So the longest pair is numbered 1, and it goes in humans all the way through 23. So in humans, pairs 1 through 22 are what are called autosomes, and you probably remember that those have the genes on them that control all the features of your body. Instructions for making the proteins that make up your hair, your skin, your eyes, the cells that line your gut, instructions for making enzymes to help break down milk or sugar or fat or whatever. Pair 23 are the sex chromosomes, and while those have the genes on them that control which reproductive cells, which gametes you produce, eggs or sperm, they also have a few other genes on them, so when we get further into genetics, we'll talk about sex-linked traits. Those are things carried on those X and Y chromosomes in humans. Now, you probably figured this out all by yourself, but we can actually take a karyotype of any species. And here are karyotypes of 5 related species: monitor lizards, marbled geckos, worm lizards, river turtles, and the beloved, the familiar, the chicken. When we look at a karyotype, if it shows 2 chromosomes at each position, the cell that it was taken from was a somatic cell or a body cell. If it only shows a single chromosome at each position, the cell that DNA, that those chromosomes were taken from, was a gamete, meaning a reproductive cell, egg or sperm. Now, you probably think you know all about sex chromosomes. In humans, as a matter of fact, in all mammals, the sex chromosomes are X and Y. They're even X and Y in some reptile species. But in some birds and some reptiles, their sex chromosomes are a Z and a W, and it's a little different, but that's okay. There's more than one way to do things in nature. So here we've got karyotypes of 11 orchid species, and these are all pretty similar, pretty related species. Notice a few things about the flowers pictured there and the karyotypes over here. What do you see? Well, a lot of people notice immediately that they all seem to have the same number of chromosomes, and that's true. Related species often do have the same number of chromosomes, or they're only 1 or 2 pairs off. You might also notice that there aren't any sex chromosomes. Plant species don't usually have sex chromosomes. There are exceptions to that, but in general, plants don't have what we would call a sex chromosome. Bonus, do you remember chromosome fusions from way back in chemical evidence of evolution? You can sometimes actually see where 2 chromosomes have fused. It's so cool. For any species, and this is a karyotype of Saxifraga harai, it's a little flower species. For any species, the number of pairs times 2 is equal to the diploid number. So for this species, what's the diploid number? You ready? 48, because there are 24 pairs with 2 chromosomes at each location. For any species, the number of pairs themselves is equal to the haploid number. So for this species, the haploid number for Saxifraga harai is, that's right, 24, because there are 24 pairs. Cool. This is a karyotype from a honey bee. Pretty cool. And along with doing all of their amazing work gathering pollen, pollinating plants, and making delicious honey, They have a diploid number of, what would it be? They have 16 pairs, 32. What would their haploid number be? 16, because that's the number of pairs they have. For this pterosaur, I can't believe I found a karyotype for a pterosaur. A pterosaur, it's like a flying dinosaur. It may be a flying dinosaur, but what's its diploid number? 50! What's its haploid number? 25, because they have 25 pairs. This is a human karyotype, but wait, something looks wrong. It only shows one chromosome at each position. Shouldn't there be two? Oh, what could possibly be the explanation? This is the chromosomes that came out of a human gamete. What's a gamete? Eggs and sperm. So remember that gametes have half the diploid number. They are haploid cells. You knew that. So let's talk a little bit about getting extra chromosomes. So trisomy is when a person or a dog or a plant has an extra copy of one chromosome, making instead of 2 in each pair, 1 a group of 3. So this individual, who this karyotype came from, has a condition called trisomy 18. It's also known as Edwards syndrome. And it's a condition that affects, I think it's about 1 in every 5,000 births. Children with Edwards syndrome, well, we'll talk more about this when we talk about genetic conditions, but they've got fairly serious complications. Most of them, sadly, do not live very long. There are other trisomies that affect the autosomes in humans that we know of. The most well-known is probably trisomy 21. That's also known as Down syndrome, and this is one that doesn't really have life-threatening impacts. People with Down syndrome live relatively normal, long lives. There are other trisomies of the autosomes, like trisomy 12, trisomy 13. We'll talk a little bit more about those later. You can also have trisomies of the sex chromosomes. For instance, triple X syndrome is when someone has 3 copies of the X chromosome, and Klinefelter syndrome is when someone has got 2 X's and a Y. Most trisomies have some effect on the body. Some have some effects on cognitive or brain development as well. We'll talk more about these when we get a little further into genetics. It's also possible to see something called a monosomy, missing a copy of one chromosome. So instead of a pair of chromosomes, we see one position that has a single chromosome. This is monosomy X, also known as Turner syndrome. Okay, do you think you've met all these objectives? Can you identify the diploid and haploid number of a species from a karyotype? Can you find missing or extra chromosomes? And can you tell autosomes and sex chromosomes apart on a karyotype? Excellent. If you have any other questions, just ask them.